everybody. Hope you're all having a great week. Today is time for our big design reveal. Use the first card in our new deck, the non-jewelry and findings deck. Today I'm also going to give you a little bit of a teaser on the new deck and the kits that are coming with it, or are available with it. And we'll do a more thorough showing you of what's in these items on Sunday, and I will officially put the new deck and the kits up for sale on Sunday. Right now I'm just trying to figure out the final pricing on one of them, and then what kind of deals that I'm going to make for you. I also will I'm planning to have some large hold beads available. I do have a number of large hold pearls, gemstones, as well as glass beads. There are going to be some in one of these kits. So anyways, if you're interested in that, hopefully you'll tune in Sunday, or at least watch the replay. And like I said, we'll get those posts up and show you what's going on. So hopefully all of you that are down on the Gulf are staying safe from the new hurricane going through there. Good chance, as long as your power stays, of staying inside and doing some creative beading. We'd love to see what you're making. As always, we like to see your designs in the Bead Stash Challengers group. You can always play with our cards if you don't have them, or you just want to try what I draw. That's great. Happy to have you do that. Just let us know. You can, anybody else who posts their drawing in there, you can use what they draw as well to make your new design, and just challenge yourself to boost your creativity a little. I have been making things this year that I can tell you 100% I would have never come up with if the cards hadn't suggested to me that I make some of these things. So I really do think that it's it's really increased my my thinking about my designs and how to incorporate things that I wouldn't always use. The other thing it's accomplished for me is it forces me to look through my stash and see what I've got and pull out some things that I might have forgot I had, so that I can put them in some designs for all of you. So I really look forward to seeing what you guys are making and hearing how things are going for you. And like I said, we'll incorporate this new deck in today, so you'll start seeing how some of that's going. I am not the expert on clasps. We are making clasps. Kay at Stars Beads I would consider as my expert on clasps that I follow. She has shown in the past how to make some clasps. So there's a lot of different kinds of clasps out there. In our new deck, there are cards on using a bunch of different kinds, and one of the things, which like I said, we'll start teasing you, is this little bag. Not all that little. It's pretty heavy. This has over, I think, 24 kinds of findings. I'll have to double check my number on that. Anyways, number of them are clasps. So like I said, there's a lot of different kinds of clasps out there. Hey Ellen, thanks for joining me. Hope you're having a great week so far. We're just talking a little bit about clasps and how I am not the clasp expert, but there's two kinds of clasps that are fairly easy to make. The easiest one is a hook clasp. So I'll show that today. The other kind is you can make your own toggle clasp. So if I have time, we may make that, because my project itself isn't that complicated. But like I said, as we Sunday, when I go through what's in these packets that come with that are available with the jewelry, or the non-jewelry and findings deck, you will see a number of different clasps types that will be available. But anyways, we're gonna have a little fun today. We're gonna make something a little different. I talked a little bit about when we incorporate this new deck. So the things, you know, when we draw what we have to make, some things are, today's is like make a clasp. So my project could be just making that clasp. Hey Lorraine, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. But also you can pick whatever finding you have to make when you draw that make card, because, you know, one of them may be just head pins, and you may get really bored if you're just making head pins, right? But if you're making the head pins and then using them to make some earrings or something, that's fine. So you can always pick whatever finding it tells you to make. You can make a project from that. So with my drawing this week, I drew that I had to use stretch cord in my design. It doesn't make sense to try to use a stretch cord to make a clasp, right? It's possible. I might take on that challenge a little bit, but we'll see. But I decided that the stretch cord part of my requirement for my design this week led me towards making a bracelet. Now, those of you that have been making jewelry for a while realize that usually when you do stretch cord, you're just making, you know, a bangle. You're making something that goes around your wrist and has no clasp. So this will be a little different today. I have seen some people out there that make like, you know, we made those Super Duo rings earlier this year. So there's the bracelet version, and some people do make those and put a clasp on them. Now, I did show that you could make that with flexible beading wire as well as stretchy cords. So anyways, we're going to play with the design. We're going to try something new. And we'll see. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend using stretch cord and a clasp, but we're going to do it because that's what the cards told us we had to do this week. So anyways, so the other things we have to put in our design is links. As I show you what I'm using, we can go through that links a little bit. We have to use yellow, which is fine. Yellow is a nice pop of color. It's a nice fall color, you know, now that we're graduating into fall. Some of you actually have fall. I'm in Arizona. We don't really have fall. I mean, we do and we don't. I mean, and it's definitely not fall yet because we're still in the hundreds. But the overnight temperatures are dropping, so, you know, we're supposed to be down with a string of 90s and even into the 80s this week, so that's very exciting. Anyways, yellow, great fall color, and then I have to design something using my favorite color. Those of you that have watched me and seen what I buy when I'm on the other sites know that pretty much any variant of teal or turquoise is my favorite color. Okay, I do also love purple. I know some people have even thought that purple was my favorite color, but I buy a lot of purple because I have two family members that it's their favorite color, so I definitely do. Watch theirs. Okay. It was beads on elastic cord with clasp finish. Oh, okay. Well, so Ellen, you have seen it done in person, so and you've done it yourself, so we'll see how this goes today. So, anyways, that's our project. Let me flip over the camera so I can show you a few things, and we will get started on making our clasps. So, like I said, just a reminder, here's our cards that we're going to use. The making a clasp, using stretch cord, we're using links, we're using yellow, and we're using teal or turquoise because that's my favorite color. So I did make, so let's talk about this. Like I said, I think the easiest clasp to make, you know, if you're a metalsmither, obviously you could make your own box clasp or pretty much any kind of clasp, but we're just working with wire, basic tools. Now, this is an example, and I put this on because it actually doesn't match my outfit, but I just want to show you. So here's one where they used really thick gauge wire. I'm thinking this is like a 10 or 12 gauge aluminum, so it's very light, but it is strong because it's thick. And you know, all they did was do a loop, and then this is basically, you know, a spring ring, right? Because it's two loops around. So that's a very simple way to make a clasp or a toggle clasp. And I was messing around with yesterday, and so I made a little clasp here. So basically what I did was, you know, I did a wrapped loop, and then I just put some beads on there. Now, in order to get the beads to sit and not try to like come around this curve, because they will do that, just like on earrings, I did wrap a little bit of like 24 gauge wire on there. I guess I should move this a little closer, maybe you can see it, but yeah, I did get my little skull bead out so that I could get a little fall or Halloween in there. All right, I don't know why my camera doesn't want to focus. And then for the connector, I just made a big loop and a small loop. Now you could just as easily, I use 18 gauge wire. I recommend using, you know, thicker wire. I wouldn't use anything less than a 20 gauge wire. And for a hook, you know, as long as there's not a lot of pressure on the hook that might pull it out of shape, 20 gauge is probably fine. I used wrapped loops so that there's no, if there is pressure put on it by whatever design I have, it's less likely to come out of shape and come apart. So if you think about that, any kind of simple loops have a kind of a weak point, right? Because they can be bent out of shape if they get tugged on. So I kind of like to use wrap loops when I can, but you know, that does mean that I have to think about it as I'm making my design, because I have to attach my design directly to this. I can't open it. Now I can use a jump ring, but that, again, we talked about jump rings a little bit last couple of weeks. That also adds something that can be stretched out of design. So you want to use a good quality jump ring that if you're going to do that. So we'll probably make something similar to this hook clasp. I also made one. So this one actually incorporates, if I was just making the clasp with the cards that I drew, I basically made what I would consider a link, but I put oversized loops on both ends, right? Got my yellow and my turquoise in there. And these are both wrapped loops, right? And then I made a big hook that fits through either one. So, you know, that also can make my design a little bit adjustable by an inch, because depending on what I hook one of these ends to, you know, I could still hook in there and just have a dangle if perhaps you wanted to use it for somebody who was shorter. But then I also, and I couldn't decide whether this was cheating or counted as stretch cord. Now what this is it's a large rubber jump ring, right? You know, technically you know, these are created as the rubber rings that are used in like plumbing or various things, right? But I happen to have some yellow ones, right? I put some extra, I did attach it to this, but see, this does have an open simple loop, so I could take that off. But I was kind of deciding that this is stretchy, and maybe that counts, right? I have to adjust my loops a lot, so yeah, it does take practice. But anyways, if I count this as my stretch cord, because it is stretchy, then it kind of fulfills all my requirements that were in my draw this week. But I decided to be more creative, and we're going to work with actual stretch cord this week. I'm just going to use my free stretch cord that came with some beads from Stars Beads. I have some leftover beads that I'm going to use. I have some synthetic turquoise. I'm using cheap turquoise today. I have a set of yellow beads, including, I have one little yellow skull. I started pulling out my Halloween stuff this week, in case you couldn't tell. So I had wire scraps there that I need to put in my recycling thing. And then, so I thought I would use a link in the bracelet. I have these links, you know, basically the difference between a link and a charm is it has a connection on both ends, right? You can convert links into charms, and sometimes you can convert charms into links if it's a soft enough material that you can poke another hole in it. So I'm sure we'll go over that at some point in some design. But I've got another skull, so I'm going to work with that a little bit. So I also thought I would try, I have these little tiny wire guardians, and I'm going to use those around the ends of my stretch cord, since my stretch cord has to end, to give it a little more strength wherever I'm connecting it to. So then it'll be doubled up as it goes through the beads, and we'll put a knot in there somewhere. But let's work on making the clasp first. So like I said, I can either make a sort of a design something. We could make something along this line if you want to see it, or even like I said, like this one. We can I thought something like this would be kind of cute, you know, attached to this link. It's a little long though, you know, to go around my wrist, unless that was the focal, but obviously I can't connect it easily directly, so I'm not going to use something that long, because it won't go around my wrist. But for a necklace, that would be great. Now, if you're using hook clasps on a bracelet, you do want them to be fairly tight on your wrist, because the looser it is, the more likely it's going to slip off and fall off, right? So as long as it's tight when it's actually on your wrist, you should be good with that. But normally you would probably want to use something else. So we could try a toggle. I have not made my own toggle, so we could make a small toggle clasp as part of our design today. So let's think about that. I don't know. Would you rather see hooks or a toggle? And we might have time for to make the other one at the end, if because you know, stringing on elastic doesn't take long at all. So I'm gonna start with 18 gauge wire. Like I said, I think you want a thicker wire when you're doing this, because it'll hold its shape better. And I'll also show you how we're gonna harden that up a little. I cannot make up my mind what I want to do here. So all right, well, we know we need a hook. We'll work on the hook clasp first, and then we'll think about a toggle. So I can either make the hook, or I can make the connection that's going to go to the bracelet. And that's the other thing to think about is, do I want this clasp I'm making to be part of the main part of the design, or do I just want, you know, this in the middle? I was thinking, because it's stretchy, I don't want, I want a continuous thing, so I'm thinking of making the clasp and my link the part that's on my wrist. So let's I think maybe I'm gonna make a little link with a big hole on it for the hook to go into, right? So I'm only gonna just cut like 3 inches, which I probably don't actually need that long, but I'd rather have a little extra. I am using soft flex craft wire today. It's nice and maneuverable, but it's also can be stiffened up to work with this. So I will. I want to put a small loop at one end. So we're going to do our wrapping. So you're in the 90 degrees. I'm going to make the loop a little bigger than I normally would. So I'm just going to go up a little to the fatter part of my pliers, because you're not going to get as many wraps, you know, with your wrap loop with this thick wire. And see, my already a little out of shape here, but so I have my circle. So I think I want to connect this directly to my link. You know, we can always cut it off and start over, right? But I'm going to hook it directly there. Now I could use a jump ring, but I am going to hook it directly so this makes it a little more permanent. I am going to use my pliers to pull my wire around because this is thick wire, and being a short tail, it's a little hard to maneuver, and where it's going to take a little adjusting here because I have a really short tail. So I should have allowed more room. So I'm just going to kind of squeeze and turn, but slide that back up. Now the good news is, as long as I go all the way around once, and it isn't going anywhere. So it's barely all the way around. Let me use my other pliers. Yeah, you guys get to see me fight with the wire today because we're using the thicker wire. All right, so you'll see it went all the way around, so that's not going anywhere, right? So then I thought I would put my little skull on here. I'm gonna put just a couple of small spacer beads on either side just for a little decorativeness, right? So. Although that does make it longer, right? Now this is where I'm going to make my not the pliers I wanted to use there, my large loop for hooking the clasp through. So I still want to turn it 90 degrees, and then I have one of these, you know, 6 size looping pliers, so we're going to use that. I'm going to go ahead and use, I think, the second largest one. So we'll see if we can get our pliers in there. Sometimes you have to do a little adjusting because you just can't get them where you want them. So, and we can always straighten that out a little when we get there, so we get in. So the main thing you want to do is make sure this is big enough when you do your little loop like this, that it will fit through that hole. So, you know, quite honestly, this is much larger than I need, so I may make it a little smaller. So let's use a smaller size to kind of pull this around, because we don't need quite as much loop as we had. All right, so that's a slightly smaller loop. I'm going to go ahead and Again, put my pliers around here to anchor that, and then I just want to wrap the other wire around. Again, you want it to go around at least once. Since this is thick wire, it's not going to go anywhere. We will trim that, and then, you know, as usual, tuck it in. And I have to be a little careful here because I have it really tight in there. I don't want to crush my silver bead, but anyways. So there we go, we have a loop. Now, all right, I need to flip him around because I do need him facing up, right? Now I could take this thick wire, and it's pretty thick and it's pretty much gonna stay in place. If I want to give it a little, what we call work hardening, and those of you that are used to do wire working, and or, you know, if you do like soldering and stuff, you have to work harden your product. Like jump rings need work hardening. One thing you can do is just take some pliers, just kind of squeeze it, because working with the wire is what hardens it, right? That's why it's called work hardening. The other thing you can do is you take a little bench block. I have this little tiny one, which I love for these kind of projects, but you can use a regular size one and a small hammer and just lightly tap that. Now, when we make our hook, we're definitely going to want to do that. On the ring, it really doesn't make as much difference. But anyway, so there's the one end of our clasp. So let's make our hook, and then we can start making it into our bracelet, okay? So I'm just moving my tools back out of the way. So here we need to decide how big do we want our hook. And like I said, you want a little bit of length in here, and that's partly because you want it to not, you know, like I said, if it's loose, you want it to be harder for your ring to come undone so your jewelry doesn't fall off, right? You know, if you were wearing a necklace, chances are you're going to set this so that the weight is keeping it. But on a bracelet, you need the bracelet to kind of pull on it. Now, the one great thing about us using stretchy in our design is we can make the bracelet a little shorter so that it has to stretch to go on, but then it sits, you know, easily unstretched around your wrist, and that'll keep the loop from coming out. So I think I'm only gonna do it if I want to do a wrapped ring, or we'll just do a simple one for the end of this, just to make it a little quicker. And I'm going to use I'm going to cut 2.5 inches. Hopefully that's enough. Anyway, we'll have to make it enough. Again, so I'm using my 6 loop pliers. I want a fairly small loop because this is, you know, at one end. So actually I need a small loop at both ends, right? So one is where it's going to attach to the rest of the bracelet. So I can use either the smallest or the second smallest. I wouldn't use anything larger than that. And quite honestly, with thick wire, it'll come out looking bigger than you think. Now, when you're making a loop with like baling pliers or even your round nose pliers, what you want to do is just put the tip between the pliers, because the more that's sticking out, the less round your loop is going to be. And then I'm going to use my thumb, not the pliers, to turn, right? And then I'm just going to adjust it and pull it the rest of the way in. So there's my one end. Now, that kind of looks like it should be the end of my loop, so it's fine. So now you just need to decide how long you want this loop to be. I do think like earring, if you have the baling pliers that are earrings size instead of these, that it works fine for this loop. Since I'm making a bracelet, I don't want the loop part to be huge. So, and you want the loop to be opposite of this ring. So I'm going to use the larger of the two center ones, and I'm just picking a little distance that makes sense to me. And nice thing is it's wire. It can be adjusted if I decide that's too short or too long, right? So there I have that loop. I've made a loop here, and I have my hook, and you know, I can test it. It'll fit through there just fine because it's small. So now this end I need to do a simple loop in the opposite direction of this one. So I have too much wire on here to do my simple loop, so I'm going to trim it a little, and then I will do that loop. So I may go ahead and use the second size. So the important thing here is to know which way you want to turn it. Since I want it to be around that one, I'm going to push the wire around that and turn this, right, until it connects with that. Now you'll notice, hey Janelda, thanks for joining us. We're making a clasp. I don't know how successful we are, but we're making a clasp. All right, so this one's not beautiful, and it's not obvious which side needs to connect to the design and which one is connecting, or you know, you going through the loop. But you know what? You can decide that on your own, or you could adjust, you know, trim it off and convert it some more. So if I'm going to assume that this is the side that's connecting to my bracelet, and then this is my hook, it's okay actually that the hook is longer. I just need to make that decision, right? But now I can open this and connect it, because in this case I made the loop big enough that either side can go through. So you just need to make the design, or make the decision as we put the bracelet together. But let's go ahead and lay that out. So now we need to figure out how are we going to get elastic and our beads. So let's pour our beads out. We gotta get the, you know, I'm gonna add a yellow bead, but I do have yellow in my link, so that makes it simple. I want enough plastic cord that I can double it. I'm gonna go ahead and, you know, we do like 12 inches, since I have over 2 inches here, and I'm pre-stretching it, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off. You can use whatever brand stretch cord works for you. This was convenient for me, so I pulled that out. Now I'm gonna lay this out like this is the see how long my link and my my clasp are. So that ends up being about 2.5 inches. So for me, my stretch bracelets, I like to be around 6.5 inches or so. So we do need a little space when we put our wire guardians on. I'm not too concerned about you know, my design. Let's get some of these off the thing. So I may just sort of randomly string it. I think I do want to incorporate my little yellow skull here right at the end though, so I may do that side first and then we'll work our way over to here. So stringing through these wire guardians, you just have to be really careful. These ones I have are very small, but I was able to, I tried sticking the stuff through, and it does go through this hole. You won't be able to see it because they're tiny, and this stretch cord is clear, but yeah. Did make sure I could get my stretch cord through there. I think I'm gonna trim this at a slant. Maybe that'll help me get it through the guardian. Janelle, there, are you getting rain from that hurricane, or is it far enough east? There we go. I know you guys can't see it, but I can see it coming through. This is where having fingernails helps. All right. I have to use my, there we go. Sorry about that. Sometimes getting things through small holes is difficult. I do have some black stretch cord, so maybe I should have used that so I could see it a little better. All right, I'm gonna, because I'm sort of doubling things up, I'm gonna go ahead and pull my cord so that they're almost even there. And I'm going to go ahead and attach this to my link. So now the wire guardian goes through there, and that'll help this link not rub on that. And now I want to just kind of squeeze the ends because I'm putting it through one thing. So you never thought to use wire. Yeah, well, I had to come up with something because I didn't trust that this design would hold, and I'm still not. So we're trying it out today. I'm going to put some spacers next to that real quick. So hopefully my cords can have both, or my holes in my beads are big enough for 2 cords to go through it. I think most of these beads I have are, so we'll see. Yeah, surprisingly, these little teeny tiny skull beads do have pretty good holes in them. Yeah, Janelle, I was talking earlier about how, normally on a stretch, you wouldn't use a clasp on a stretchy bracelet, but so my thought is this will be the upper part of my bracelet, and now the rest of the beads can sort of just be a random design, I'm going to mix the silver and these turquoise beads. And then we just got to make sure we leave room for our loop at the other end, right? So my neighbor actually had me make something for her, and she brought over these silver beads. So we incorporated those and some other beads into her design. So she just left me with the extras. I said, I'm not one, I usually use thick cord and don't necessarily double my cords, so see how this goes. I'll try not to make it too much where I'm fighting to get these cords in. Now remember, we did kind of put an angle on this one so it can go in a little easier. Is there a secret to getting the double cords through the stretch cord? If you're one of those people that doubles your cords always. Or is the secret just having big enough holes in your beads? Trying to be a little random here, but I will say I'm probably not being random. You know, I want to mix up the beads a little bit. Okay, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, if you use smaller cord. If any of you started making some fall designs, I'd love to see them on our Bead Stash Challengers page. For those of you, if you missed last week's video, we are going to, our giveaway this month, oops, is a pair of chainmail pumpkin earrings, which I have around here somewhere. My office, because I've been working on these kits to go with the cards, is a disaster at the moment, so I just clear off this little space so I can work with you guys on the on the film, or on the video. Alright, so still need another 1.5 inches or so. Any of you out there, it's the flat stretch cord that came with, it was a freebie from Bedoria, I think. And it's actually, you know, strong, but yeah, it is probably harder to get through those bead things because of it was flat, yeah. So, you know, I always say I need 6.5 inches, but I always have to check because sometimes I feel like it's not really exact. It kind of depends on well, I mean, it does depend on the size of beads you're using, because, you know, if you're using bigger beads, you have to actually go longer to get around your wrist. I may just put one more little silver bead on there, and then we're going to deal with this wire guardian and figure out how I hadn't really thought about the best way to tie the knot. So, oh, you do bargain bead box. I've never, you know, I have to say I wasn't familiar with them until I started doing some of these videos, and then I ran across a lot more people using the bargain bead box. You know, everybody's got their Halloween stuff out. I pulled out I actually, because I have so much Halloween jewelry stuff, because I love Halloween. It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite holidays. It's my husband's favorite, so we do celebrate it. We have a Halloween party every year. And Day of the Dead also, you know, is around there, which is very popular in our area. So I have a lot of skull stuff. So I keep it separate, and I pulled it out the other day to just start thinking about it. And I have tons of stuff left from last year's Halloween stuff that everybody was doing. Alright. Now, question is, how do I, not sure what the best way to do the tie on this. You've done, oh, the bargain bead. Okay. I was like, what, you've done what? So I hadn't really thought about how I was going to tie this. So I am going to put it back through this the one end that went around through the wire guardian. I'm going to put that one back through this bead. Fortunately, I have a big enough hole. And squeeze those ends together. Now the question is, how do I guess I'm just going to kind of stretch this and tie the knot here. I don't, you know, I really hadn't thought about how I go about tying this. So I think this is going to have to be I will say, I don't think I recommend this path, but we'll see if we can get something that'll hold. Okay. I'm ending up just, I'm trying to tie it with so that it is actually crossing over. I didn't, like I said, think this through very much about how to tie this on here. All right, I think I've tied it around there a couple times. And then I am going to just kind of stick this back through the next bead just before I trim it. So I may not trim it right away. We'll put the bracelet on and see if it falls apart on us. well, you know, like I said, the cards make us try some crazy things. This one will definitely be on my list. All right. So now I just have to decide which of these. I'm going to use the shorter side with the bigger loop. Since I did a simple loop here. Oh, I did not, sorry, before I put that on there, I am going to hammer this to harden it. And like I said, you don't have a hammer and a little block to do your hammering on. Just squeeze things with your pliers real hard a few times, and that should help harden it a little bit. So now I'm just gonna, again, just like, you know, a jump ring or any of these others, we open it to the side, and I'm going to slip this wire guarding on there, and I'm going to close it, and then I want to make sure that it gets as tight against there as possible so it doesn't come apart. So let's see if we can do this. So I did have to stretch it a little to get it on, but that's what you want, because you want, since we're using a hook clasp, we want it to, like I said, lay smoothly on our wrists so that it's not likely to come apart when we're wearing it. And there we go. We have a clasp, we have our link, we have our yellow, we have our favorite color, and we have our stretch cord, which I need to trim, but all right, so I'm gonna have to work on these knots a little bit, but all right, thanks for joining. So anyways, there we go. What do you think? I don't, like I said, I think I'd have to be a little careful wearing it, but I'll kind of tighten these knots up a little bit. There's got to be a better way, but at least, like I said, having the wire guarding in there will keep that stretch cord from rubbing on the metal, and it also gives it a little more bulk to not come out of there. And there we go. So just so I don't drag things on, we won't make a toggle clasp today, but you know, we'll be seeing the clasp, or the clasp card again. But like I said, just wanted to show you, you know, you can add color to your links like we did here. We added the little skull bead as part of our design. And Sunday, if you join me, I will be going, I don't know what project I'm going to make, but I am definitely going to show you what's coming with the new cards and the bead pack. So have a great weekend. Hopefully, like I said, those of you along the Gulf don't have too many problems with the storm, but stay safe. And hopefully, if it is raining, it gives you a good excuse to stay inside and do a little beading. So thanks again for joining me. Let me go ahead and flip this over, and I will see you all on Sunday. We're still on Pacific time for now. We've got another month and a half or so, so we're good there. Don't see any reason why I will not be on time on Sunday. And like I said, we'll come up with a new project. We'll think about doing something for fall. I was going to show you the earrings. This month's prize, if you post something, we are giving away the pair of pumpkin earrings that we made. Oh well, I'm going to post them later. So that's the giveaway. If it's your first time winning, you will also get, and you have cards, you will also get a card holder along with your pair of earrings. If you won before, you're probably going to get just the earrings. So anyways, but please show me what you're working on. If you're doing some fall projects, love to see them. Like I said, it doesn't feel like fall here yet, but unlike Phoenix, at least we're in the low hundreds, and we've had a lot of below 100 days, so we're not in quite the heat crisis that they are. So it's all good. So, all right. Thanks again. We'll see you all on Sunday.